All right, welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. I'm joined by Charles Causey from Agile Partnering. How's it going today, sir?
Going very well, thank you. It's actually cool over here in Atlanta, Georgia for the first time in quite a bit.
Ah, man. So Atlanta, Georgia. For anybody who doesn't know the states that well, what part of the country is it? What are you near?
East Coast. So if you know where Miami is and you go to the state directly north of that, that's Georgia, and then Atlanta is right, pretty much in the middle, slightly north. Yeah.
All right, lovely. Charles is a staffing expert, and we are going to go into all things staffing. But I suppose, like anything, it'd be interesting to know how did you get into this weird and wonderful industry that we're part of?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. Not to go too far back, but when I came out of college, I knew I wanted to go start and run a business and that sort of thing. And this may sound odd, but I cared a little bit less about what type of business it was and more about how it was run, the values, and sort of the performance of it. And I looked around for a while, but I ended up spending about 15 years in software sales, specifically enterprise SaaS sales in the HR sector. So worked for everything from venture-backed startup companies to SAP. And the whole time I was really looking for an opportunity, and some friends came along and they had an idea to, hey, let's go start this sort of recruiting staffing. I spent about 15 years in enterprise SaaS sales, specifically in the HR technology sector. So I was around a lot of front office, back office software, HRS systems. And then a couple of friends came to me and basically said, hey, we had this idea. One guy had staffing experience, the other guy had some money, and said, hey, let's go build this business. And it was really we didn't really completely know what we were doing at the time in terms of, or I didn't completely understand it at the start. And the first few years, we were doing staffing, we were doing recruiting, we were doing consulting. And what I realized for me is that number one, those items, they're challenging, right? I mean, those businesses are real. I've got a deep appreciation for it. And we did well enough, but I basically realized, Walter, that I was really good at the operations side and making sense of the complexities of the back office, of the legal systems. And so after the first few years, we just completely stopped everything else and only focused on building a really, really successful employer of record business for staffing companies.
Brilliant. So, for anybody who's listening to this, what is that? Because, uh,
Yeah.
you know, uh, you kind of have to really know a little bit about contract recruitment to get into the finer details. So, give us just a bit of an insight into what that means.
Yeah, totally. I mean, try to the Christmas party. It's super niche. I tell everybody that. And so, as an employer of record for staffing businesses, we
Mm.
just make it really, really easy for staffing companies, either in the UK or in the USA, to build and scale a business here in the USA. And the way that we do that as the employer of record is for all of your contract workforce. We literally step in and we become the employer of record for those workers, which means we're going to handle based on which model you're working with the onboarding of the workers, the timesheets, the payroll, potentially the payroll funding for you. And we're not just doing it administratively, we're actually assuming the risk of it, right? We're actually stepping in as the employer of record. So the net result for the staffing company is they can focus on finding clients and making placements, growing their business. And we're going to actually take on that legal, administrative, and back office funding challenge for them. Does that make
Is
sense?
that it? Is that on every type of business? Like, could I put a rigger out on a site, and like, would you take the risk on that as much as like
Yeah,
an accountant?
that's a great question. So what you're getting into right now is workers' compensation insurance, which is a total minefield in the
Yeah.
United States. We can cover everything as our particular employer of record business, everything that would be marginally risky, like we have electricians out,
Yeah.
people in power plants, but wind turbine mills, somebody hanging upside down 100 feet in the air, our carriers are not going to permit that. Even captive programs would typically not support that. That's a real challenge when you get in those really high risk environments.
Yeah, because I remember even like I worked for a publicly listed business and they were trying to set up an oil and gas arm. And it's so risky that they had to set up a separate business to get separate insurances so they weren't liable on the main company because I mean explosions happen. We have all seen the movies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to be liable on it.
It's totally real. I mean, just yesterday, I didn't use the wind turbine just anecdotally. I literally got a call yesterday. Somebody wanted to place contractors, successful UK staffing company doing it in the UK, wants to make contract placements on windmills in the USA, and we can't support it. And what I explained to them is that I get too in the weeds. The workers' comp market is really difficult in part because at the federal level, the federal government requires all employers provide worker comp insurance, but the private carriers are not legally required to offer it. They can deny anybody. And so you get in this really difficult situation where you have to have it, but the carriers hold all the cards. And so for something that's really high risk like that, that's going to be a bespoke solution where there's probably going to need to be an entity set up. It's going to be probably very hard to find an EOR that's going to support that. And if it would be a very niche EOR.
So I want you to give away some secrets.
I would expect nothing less.
All right, I'm a UK recruiter, right? I got a bag of money. Not many of them have a bag of money, but let's say I've got a bag of
I was
money.
going to say, let's talk
And
about that.
my advisor said to me, "You need to set up in America. Um, I want you to do contract. Which niche should I go into and why? Right now, if you just crystal ball over what you've seen, margins wise, demand wise, what's candidate short, and like which is it?"
Um, that's a devil's advocate question for sure. I mean, it's going to be really based on what your current expertise is. I would never look at somebody straight in the face and say, "Hey, you ought to go to bio, life sciences, and pharma because it's got great margins." Maybe you should, but maybe you don't know jack about that,
Yeah.
right? And to me, that's just not the way that I would necessarily start up. Now, if you want to look at the SIA reports, engineering is up, marketing, branding, that's up. Bio life sciences, the margins there are good. IT continues to be strong with margins around 25 to 30% on average for those sectors. These are all great sectors to be in, but getting niche to me it's not just about picking one out of the recent chart in terms of what's growing. It's really starting with what clients do you actually know? What is your current level of expertise in that area? Which geo do you want to be in? There's a number of factors there
Yeah.
that I would guide somebody towards.
In my time of looking at it, the UK dynamic was everybody at the start went to New York, set up a base. It was a lot of financial services and technology. Then they went to LA and all recruited out of San Francisco from LA. And then there was another batch of UK recruitment companies that did oil and gas, and they would have went out of Houston
Texas.
and
Yeah.
later Florida. And now we're seeing a few other states jump up, like Texas and especially Austin, Miami, and other Floridian areas as well. What kind of key trends are you seeing in the market?
Yeah. I mean, I think every one of those is pros and cons. Actually, I think you posted something yesterday. I commented on it of, it used to be the New York, the LA, and I would say the Austin is pretty heavily already. I mean, that's quickly become a very established market. But the tier two, tier three cities, there's great opportunity in those areas. And to rattle off a few of them, certainly Miami, but also you look at Orlando, you look at Tampa. Those are going to be great lifestyle plays with a much lower cost of living than in LA or New York. I mean, categorically lower pricing. Um, I don't hear as much as I would expect to hear about like the Raleigh tri-state area. There's a pretty solid bio life sciences and tech sector up there. Atlanta's a little bit more spread out. Um, Denver, Boulder area. I mean, that's Google's second largest headquarters is right there in Boulder, my old stomping grounds. There's a lot of those cities. And also, I mean, we're members of, as you would expect, staffing industry analyst, and they've got some great maps. If anybody's a member, and if any of your listeners want to reach out, I don't think SIA would mind if I jumped in those maps for them. So if any of your listeners do have a very specific question about their niche and they've got something targeted, I'm happy to hop in there, look at some numbers, have a quick chat with them about it, and give the credibility to SIA. But all those tier two cities are great options if it fits your niche, right? What you're good at.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Orca, the online recruitment coaching academy. Get access to live coaching, online courses, and playbooks from the industry's top coaches. Your entire organization can get access for less than the price of one email per day. Sign up today at trainwithorca.com. Back to the show.
I'm an advisor to a recruitment technology business. Actually, they're called Referec. And uh, we'll probably be launching in the US as well. How hard is it to bring a product into the US market? And can you kind of give us an insight into what that staffing world is like there? Because I mean, I see it on a
Yeah.
surface level, but I'm based over on this side of the world.
Yeah. So maybe I'll make a few comments here. One, I would just like to say, I'm not a recruiter, right? So all of my information is going to be secondhand to my clients and through the things that I read.
Okay.
I'm not a practitioner, right? So I serve you guys. I want to call that out. And maybe I'll share with you what I think are sort of like the hype about the US, like what you'll commonly hear about what it's like over here. And then I always try to be objective, right?
Yeah.
And as incentivized as I may be, right, as an employer of record provider for UK staffing companies entering the market, I'll give you some cons too that are just sort of patently obvious to me. So I think what you're going to hear from a lot of other service providers is that number one, it's a huge market. That's true. It's about $180 billion market compared to 45 billion in the UK. You're going to hear the margins are better, and that's true. I mean, statistically, that's very verifiable. I look at my own clients. I know markups are 45 to 60% on the pay rate here in the USA, based on the independent contractor W-2 with margins of 25 to 30%. That's better than what I hear is in the UK, right? 15% margin. So, and
Yeah.
that's factual. Um, but you'll also hear things like it's less competitive. And the line that I've heard before, and I've even used this line too before over time, but I've given more thought to it over the past year, which is people will say the USA is less competitive, and I don't hear that a lot from my clients. I hear that it's maybe a little bit less competitive, and the logic is that there's about 20 or 30,000 UK recruiting firms. There's about 20 or 30,000 US recruiting firms, but the UK is 4 times bigger, a la it's less competitive. Well, the top 5 staffing companies in the US do more business than all the UK combined. And the average employee per USA staffing company is like 28 or 30 versus UK of 4 people. So there's like 700, and this is me just doing a little, background research on it. I think there's like 750,000 or more salespeople recruiters in the US and 120 in the UK. It's just that they work for much bigger firms. So, I would love to tell everybody in the UK that, oh, it's, the hurdle is low competitively speaking. I just think that's a little bit misleading. So, that's sort of what the UK USA market is like. The cons of it of getting into the business over here, and you've got history doing this, right? So you could speak to this, just as well, if not better than me. But one is obviously the complexity of it. I've heard it said that it's like 50 different countries. I don't know if that's quite true, but it is definitely a fragmented legal landscape. It's fragmented from a tax filing perspective. There are laws that are contrary with each other, so it's really difficult to be compliant over here. That's absolutely true, and that's obviously what we help people with. I think the time zone difference is just practically difficult. I mean, I think it's great to service the USA market from the UK during a startup phase, but at some point, just from a time zone difference in of itself, I think people are. To me, it wouldn't be totally sustainable long term to do everything from the UK servicing it. Maybe it is for some, but I think that'd be a real challenge, right?
What is that? What does that lifespan look like of your customer from that person in the UK that is kind of like kind of get some information to their what they have an incubator in the UK and then they do their first office and then what do they eventually bring their stuff in house? So like what does all that look like from a contract perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies across the board. I'll tell you what's possible, and I'll tell you what I see people actually doing.
Yeah.
It's possible to literally, I mean, we have a model, and this is not a product pitch, but we have a model where you could literally be ready to onboard your first customer within 24 hours, right? It's our full service model. We can be your in-country employer of record. We can sign staffing agreements, do the payroll funding. Like you could service a USA customer from the UK tomorrow with one of our models. That's very startup, right? Not you don't have to invest a penny up front. But
Yeah.
then over time, you're going to move, and most people then eventually say, "Hey, I want to be on the contracts. I'm going to at least incorporate an entity, maybe out of Delaware. I'm going to set up a bank account. We'll have a mailbox address, and we want to be on the staffing agreements. We don't want Agile as the intermediary." Makes total sense. And then eventually, they're going to say, "Hey, we want you guys to even be more private label and be more and more behind the scenes," and they sort of graduate up to that. Some companies will say, "We just want to go deep dive in the deep end, boots on the ground, right from the start. We're going to invest a lot of capital." That's one way to do it. I've certainly got clients to do that. I have other clients that have started in that first sort of, we're going to dip our toe in it and then slowly grow it out over time. And they've changed model after model and they scale it that way. So to me, it's all about what's your cash position, what's your risk tolerance, what's your current volume and growth and anticipated growth velocity, and then you make your decision from there. Does that seem
No,
reasonable? Yeah.
makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys have been doing this for how long now?
I think one on 9 years. So 2016. Yeah. That's when we started.
Nine years. Okay. So you're covering quite a large part of the market. And is it just the UK that you guys service, or is there like, I don't know, I'm really curious. Is like, is there companies in Germany or Ireland or based around the world that you can also do it, or is it just the UK that enters that marketplace?
So we service companies that are already in the USA, like American companies, right?
Yeah.
So we service the employer record for a number of those companies. And then we also have a group of companies in the UK. And that's actually where we started, interestingly, is servicing UK companies moving here. I would say this is a big distinguishing factor for us, not good or bad, but it is different. A lot of employer records sort of their go to market is employ anybody anywhere in the whole world, right?
Mm.
And that's not actually what we do. What we do is we help staffing companies, start and scale up here in the U.S. profitably and in Canada. And it doesn't matter if you're from the U.K. or if you're from Ireland or if you're already based in the U.S. or Canada. We can serve that group of companies. What we don't do is we don't help companies, say in the USA or the UK or anything else, hire across the world globally. That's not our bailiwick.
Oh.
Technically we can do it, but that's not the core of our business. The core of our business is really staffing placements in the USA and in Canada. We have a subsidiary that's wholly owned in Canada, so there's no subcontracting there.
So I ran a bit of a poll today, and about 50 founders of scalable companies come back on it. And let's say 75% of them also have a US office, and they have a UK office, and 100% of them said that the market is bouncing back. Is that what you're seeing across your portfolio? Please say yes.
Uh,
Please say yes.
yeah,
It's been a long
sorry.
winter.
It's like COVID again. You know?
No false flags, please.
Yeah, no, I would say that it's been a slow, like lazy recovery, but it does seem to be picking up, at least anecdotally from our business in the past few months. We're seeing more placements, we're seeing more activity, and take that with a grain of salt. The SIA again just came out with another report. They're saying the same thing, and it's interesting. At the beginning of the year, they were projecting growth this year of 5% or something like that. I think the actual growth has been stagnant or like slightly below that, but they're projecting growth again next year. And 2025 has been nuts with everything politically, obviously, but yeah, I think it's recovering. It's not spiking. It's not going through the roof, but we do see it ticking up.
I know. Quietly optimistic is how we'd like to discuss it. No, I always like to get the crystal ball out
Oh boy.
and yeah, make some predictions. Do you know? So I bought these glasses, right, that
Okay.
record and do all of this fun stuff. They turn into sunglasses, so I don't always look like a serial killer. Um,
So when you put those on, are you double recording me like with the Zoom camera and
I
also
could,
you can do that.
I could take, I'll take a picture. I'll take a picture anyway.
That's right. Nice. You can post
Uh,
that later.
yeah, and so it kind of gets me thinking. Like I can speak to those glasses, and I can be like, this is like I can just be like, hey, play Spotify, do this, do that. But the next generation of them, I'll be able to log into my applications and I'll be able to like probably start moving things around and all of that. Like when we look at technology, firstly, the big boom and where the money is AI right now. And
When
where
when you
else?
say when you say the big money, are you speaking about for staffing companies or where money is just being spent in general? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, so when a large part of my knowledge would be anecdotally from the podcast, the All In podcast. I really
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Okay.
Couple of billionaires pontificating about stuff, and and one of them is on Trump's staff. What's his name again? David Sachs. He's head of AI, and they were talking quite optimistically about the future of jobs, because I'm terrified that it's all going to disappear, and they said it's actually not. Um, so I'm wondering, for you got a daughter who's 17, she's going to go to uni, but then she's going to hit the job market. What do you think her future job prospects are going to be when she enters? Will there be staff, like what do you think the future of staffing will look like?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a big question. I would say that it's a real question. It's also a personal question, I think, for all of us, right? I mean,
Yeah,
especially if you've got kids. So I totally feel that, and I think sometimes about it. I think um, on the one hand, I do think that there's reason to be concerned. I heard a stat, and I haven't verified it, but I heard that in the past year or two, it's the first time that non-degree seekers have equaled or outpaced people with degree coming out of college with degrees in terms of getting jobs.
wow.
And it just that to me is a milestone marker of a trend that we've been seeing, because it's the real degradation of the college educational system. And so there's a whole conversation we had there of like, what does that mean if the degree doesn't really even improve your job prospects, period,
Yeah,
much less improve your actual income. Um, so I think that's super real. I I do think at a very high level, there is going to continue to be the bifurcation between the people who are controlling, guiding, informing, training the technologies versus the service industry, the people who
yeah,
are serving those people. And so if we think about the service industry, not just like hospitality, waiters, waitresses, that sort of thing, but also skilled trades, I think those will continue to be strong. There's already a huge demand gap for those trades. I think that's actually an opportunity for staffing companies and a lot of those
yeah,
skill trades, training people up, filling that gap. It's very AI resistant, right?
yeah.
Like all those sorts of things. But that middle market is scary. And in many ways, you're going to have to chase up a ladder really quickly to be one of the elite people, or AI is going to continue to eat away at your job prospects.
Being
Yeah,
an operations guy, have you been able to streamline much of your own business with AI yet, or do you feel like you're just ChatGPT and it mainly?
Yeah, for us, it's more the chat GPTing a bit, but I would say we've been able to streamline a lot through automation. And that's obviously a very clear distinction here between automation
Yeah,
proper and AI. And, those things can get confused there. But a big part of our core thesis is that we're looking to bring enterprise grade automation with AI as and when it's needed, not for the sake of having AI, but we want to bring enterprise grade automation down to the small and medium sized staffing companies
mm,
so that they can continue to compete. So, I mean, we've got projects actively going on right now. We're just people out at conferences for AI, so we're actively looking into it. But have you seen the MIT report? I'm sure you probably have. The one that basically came out a few months ago, and they said that 95% of generative AI projects have failed. It's like
yeah,
$40 billion of spend, and only 5% have been successful. And they're the ones that are really in our space, which is back office, uh, very, very tactical stuff. So we are going to be implementing generative intelligence, but my philosophy is I always want to own the first and last mile. So we're not just going to be running customer support purely through AI, right? We're always going to have that personal touch because we're not a software business. We're a service business that's automation enabled. That's a
mm.
little bit of a rant there, but
No, but I
uh,
think no, but look, we're all figuring this out.
totally,
And
yeah,
anybody who pretends that they've got it all figured out is lying, because it's changing every day. And
totally,
and we're all figuring out like what's actually working, what's not. And there's loads of promises, loads of false dawns with this. And
yeah,
I look at my own business, and the well, I broke my team's balls today on it, right? And I was like, your social media is crap. It's like it's clearly just ChatGPT crap. And that's why it's not working. I said, you can use AI, but you have to like you have to do, so I said, I'll show you how. So I put myself in an image in New York and looked at 5 coffee places for recruiters to go for coffee. Or
Yeah.
same with for Sydney, five places for a meeting in Sydney with the image of somebody else in the team
Yep.
in Sydney. So people go, wow, oh, that's interesting. You've given me insight. And then maybe I've said something from my candidate and my client. And that's an example of using it while using your own insight and
Yeah.
context.
Yep.
But the lazy bit is just, it's
It's just
just,
word soup. It's just nobody wants it. Nobody
no,
wants it.
nobody wants it, eh?
And I'll zoom out a little bit, Dualta, and I'll say this. There are a number of trends that I think are coming towards the staffing industry that are absolutely going to create change. I think AI's, you've already hit the big one, AI, right? I think the rise of talent platforms, there's a lot of companies out there investing real dollars to build essentially platforms that are talent pooling that are gonna fill the role of staffing companies. There's margin pressure from MSPs,
Mm.
margin pressure from direct sourcing, and MSPs are getting bigger. Actually, in 2009, 40% of companies in the US that had 1,000 employees or more used MSPs. Last year, I think it was 58%. So there's just not only more companies using them, but they're getting bigger. And you've got this crazy regulatory environment. Did you see, obviously, there's the H-1B debacle. If you saw the Hyundai raid for the Koreans, that actually was like an hour and a half from my house. I was literally driving to Charleston to go meet my team for we're doing an annual retreat, and I'm driving like right by. It's like 2 days after it happened. But where I was going to go with that is to say whether it's AI or platforms or MSPs or anything else, this is just a personal mindset. I think there can be limited utility in thinking too much and wondering too much these things. I really feel it's like awareness is important. Yes, we should be aware, but then the real trick, the successful staffing firms, the successful EORs, right? It's like, what's important right now? And what do I have control over? And pick your success mantra. It's like
Yeah.
opportunity lies in its volatility. Focus is the antidote to fear. Action is the antidote to anxiety. That was Robin Arzon, who I watched a master class with her last week. She was head of Peloton. Always play offense, right? It's like it doesn't matter what mantra it is. It's like all those trends are coming. Yes, we see the wave, but what do we do right now to go be successful? And that's what I'm focused on. It's like, how do I help our clients go be successful, right? How do I help them get niche? How do I help them automate? How do I help them lower their cost structure? Like what you said, it's like I can't help our clients necessarily do this, but what can they be doing? How can they be leveraging AI and automation to enhance their value prop, to move up the value chain, maybe to get into SAL work, right? Anyways, I just think it's really easy as humans to spend a lot of energy fretting and wishing things
Oh,
weren't so, and it's
and
like,
it's absolutely a bit of a personal fault of mine. And then I'm usually able to kind of put it to bed and drive on for a period of time. But in these periods of change, it does help to be quite thoughtful
yeah,
on it all because there are going to be opportunities. Like this is the new internet. Like
yeah,
it's so we all have to be careful on what's coming next. You know, when you're hired for your own company now,
yeah.
how many guys do you have?
So we've got around 10 people. And I say that we've got 6 or 7 right now. So it's a very small team and we're able to do that because we've automated so much. But then I'm a believer in outsourcing, right? Staffing companies use us to outsource. So all of our accounting function is basically outsourced. We have multiple accountants. A lot of our legal advice is outsourced. So I know enough to certainly act like an attorney and be a little dangerous, but we have specialty attorneys and that sort of stuff. So small, tight company.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a very small company too. I have three businesses and different business partners, and then a large amount of the people who work for me are actually independent contractors who've been with us a long time. And then
Yeah.
if I'll also feed them into a few other clients on a consulting basis as well, just
Yeah.
so just to keep everything lean and careful. I don't want to get caught
I
in another
personally,
job again, you know.
I love running a business this way. I mean, we're automation first, so before we hire, we're always going to seek to automate. That's just part of our operating thesis, and so I love that. But having a small, sort of think of like a SEAL team. I don't to
Yeah,
the degree that we can have less people that are performing above market average and get paid above market average.
yeah.
That to me is where like real success is found. So I work really hard to keep it lean, keep it tight.
So there's some interesting stats that came out of the UK budget today. Um, it it's it's been the worst year ever for graduate recruitment.
Mm,
So it's kind of just thinking of your company, my company, companies in general aren't hiring young people because if you can hire an experienced person now and put AI into them, you can triple output. And it's a lot of it's a safer bet. So it's a really, really hard time for young people to come into the marketplace. When you look at your last hire or your next hire, is there a chance that they're under 25?
absolutely, yes.
And
For me.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
think and you're still optimistic about hiring like young graduates and making that happen?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in having a well architected team, and what I mean by that is, and a lot of it centers around finding people that have the right natural strengths and aptitudes, because a lot of the experience can be learned. Now, look, if I'm hiring a CFO to like that's a different, right, it's a different thing, but um, for me, I do tend to take bets on people that I think have all the right natural giftings. We run assessments. I interview. Yeah, I've got an interview process that I'm constantly, working on improving. But I'm looking to find the people that I can put them into a specific role where they can spend 90% of their time doing the 10% of things that they naturally do better than 90% of the population. And I've had really good success with that. But I will tell you this: I'm not hiring those people because they have a degree. I'm hiring them because I've seen a track record of success. I believe that they got the right natural strengths for the role. I believe that they share the company values. It's not because they have a degree.
Hmm. I mean, it's always good to see that they've finished something that they've started. I, I
Yeah, that's true, and you can definitely see that. And I will say, there's just a very there's a very very practical issue, and I could go on a soapbox about this, but fundamentally, in my opinion, the entire recruiting mechanism, the monolithic structure that it is, almost all recruiting is based on the resume as the first data point for filtering out resumes. And it's really, really hard as a small business, at least for us. There's no data point that's going to share with me what somebody's natural strengths are. Like we posted for a role recently, we had 5,000 applicants in a couple of weeks. Okay, 5,000. This is like LinkedIn posting. Okay, it's a remote role. It was fairly entry level, crazy numbers. Okay, it
doing what?
was like an executive assistant role with some marketing work.
Yeah.
And although in principle I want to look at all those, and I want to be very open to anybody whatsoever. The easiest way for me to limit it is like, do you have a 4.0 with a degree? And it's at least going to will it down to 700 candidates. I mean, you have to start somewhere. So that's more of in theory, the degree really does not matter to me that much. But in practice, it ends up mattering in the interview process because the resume is a broken proxy for probability of on the job performance, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tricky.
We're way
It's
far away from the EOR world right now, which is totally cool. I'm like going on like which is totally fine. It's actually a lot of fun, but yeah, I'm off the reservation a little bit, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
These
No,
are Charles's thoughts. I'm not a certified expert.
we are for sure. When's the next big events that you'll be coming to in the UK or in the States?
I'll actually be heading over to London in I think 2 weeks. We're going to be sponsoring an event with a recruiting rec direct recruiting firm over there, and then the following week we're going to be sponsoring the international forum with APSCO. I
Ah,
think that's
brilliant.
November, yeah, November the 11th. Yeah, so we'll be having some conversations. I love getting to London, so it'll I always look forward to it.
Ah, great. I'm running an event in Manchester. I think the following week. I would have hit you up for some sponsorship if we could have. But I'm definitely so I'm doing a live podcast with four local advisors in Manchester, and I want to get that show refined and then bring it to other cities. So that's
That's
the
cool.
yeah.
Would it ever make sense for you to do something in the U.S.?
Yeah, yeah, it will. I'd like to go over again. Um, it's if you can make it in there, it's I love it. I did a tremendous amount of business there before COVID, and when the visas were tightened up, we slowed down a little bit. But now that I'm a little bit more in the rec tech space as well, and I've jumped right back into being on the desk in rec to rec.
Yeah.
And yeah, keen to get over. Maybe we could do something, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. In the UK or in the US, let me know. And yeah, you can ask me for some money. We'll do some sponsorship. That'd be
Brilliant.
fun. We'd love to do
Yeah,
it.
brilliant stuff. Okay, Charles, that's us today. If anybody wants to reach you, how can they get hold of you? And do you have any good giveaways that we can post?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know about the giveaways. Maybe it's a sponsorship or I'll take your team out for happy hour. But yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. Easy. It's Charles Causey, Causey, and Agile Partnering. You'll find me easily there or agilepartnering.com. And yeah, reach out anytime. And like I said, if you are listening and you've got any sort of question around the U.S. market, back office, how to get started, funding, margins, geographical areas. If we don't have the answers, I'm absolutely happy to take a look at it for you and just try to add value. So, Dualta, thanks for having me. It's been fun. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff, mate.